Everybody there. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So this is just a very sort of early proposal for a new kind of page unload beacon. Right, we have beaconing already in the platform with things like navigator.sendBeacon, people using unload handlers to trigger either that or putting image pixels on the screen or using XHR, synchronous or not. And all these methods are rather unreliable. Nick's done a great job of going through the reliability of each of these things and figuring out just how bad they all are and why. But in general, they're currently all sent in process, in the render process, so that is not resilient to crashes or app shutdown or your network being unreliable. We have problems like unload itself being ignored in several browsers, that certain behaviors are blocked inside unload handlers in browsers that do support it. We have network requests being deprioritized if they are emitted during an unload handler. And also we want to get rid of unload anyway because it makes pages ineligible for the back-forward cache and generally slows the web down. So for all of these reasons, it seems like there is a call for a reliable way to send data out at the end of a user session that people are currently working around in a number of different ways to get around this unreliability. So I'd like to propose a new way of doing this. We'd like to build something on the reporting API so that it will be automatically sent out of band by the browser. So the page can basically register data as an end of session beacon and have that stored by the browser up until the point where it should go out. End of session itself is also sort of an unclear term because a number of people will do things on page hide, or they will do things on unload, or they will just find some other sort of arbitrary marker for when the page is done and try to send things out then. So we would like to say, okay, at the point where the page is going to be unloaded from the browser, this is now the time to send these beacons and have that just be consistent. And obviously, because this is a register once and then possibly forget about it sort of method, we should have the ability to update the data that goes into that beacon, cancel the beacon if you decide you don't need it. And there might be a need to send it immediately, although if you have script access to send something immediately, you probably have other ways to get data out. So using the reporting API as a foundation for this would generally mean that you would set a header defining an endpoint collector. This is already used for things like CSP, for deprecation reports, for various policy violations, things like that. So this would be an additional use of that endpoint collection. And then we've got a couple of different ways of, of registering these beacons. So the first one that's been tossed around is entirely markup-based. So we basically mint a new link tag. In this case, we've just called it rel equals beacon. You tell it what endpoint things are going to be sent to. We give it a custom payload, which is the actual data that's going to be cached in the browser. I've added a sort of integration to this with the performance timeline to say, also please send me any entries of these types that are queued up. And then we've heard that it would be very useful to be able to compress this sort of thing because this could be a lot of data. So providing the compression algorithm there. And then having this link in the head would basically be enough to register that beacon. The data would be stored, cached in the browser, and not sent out until we're ready to unload that page. Now, because this is markup-based, that means that you can use DOM APIs to manipulate these things in script. If you want to create one, append it to the document head, that would register it. You could grab it out of the DOM, change the payload. You could grab it out of the DOM and remove it, and that would cancel it. So that's a sort of one of the proposals. The second one is very similar to what Yoav presented to TPAC, to this working group last year. And it's, let's do all of this in JavaScript. Let's extend the performance API and give it a way to queue up a beacon, to register a report that's going to have performance data and possibly any other payload that we want, and queue that in the browser. Now there's several advantages to doing this in script. Not everybody has access to markup or wants to mess with the markup. It's also more familiar to a lot of people. It would also allow you, by using the reporting API, to register a reporting observer. This example here has a timeout. So it would say, if the user is still on this page in 5 minutes, please just send this report anyway. And then the reporting observer would be able to actually see that if that goes out. Obviously, if it happens at the end of the session, then there's no reporting observer left to see it. But and then being a script-based API, we can add any sort of APIs that we need to update that report, to cancel it, or even to send it immediately. And that is the last of my slides. So the two different options that we've been putting out. This is all sort of very early. We're still trying to figure out what all the use cases are, and whether either of these is more valuable or less valuable to people based on the shape. But we do think that having something that is going to be much more reliable than existing methods is worth doing. So yeah, we'd like feedback on that.
Okay, yeah, stopping the recording, and then we